On this auspicious Naga Plebiscite Day, the 16th May in 1951, we the Nagas as one body, mind and spirit under the Naga National Council, led by then NNC, the then NNC President Adino Phizo, unanimously expressed our self-determinations to continue to live as a free nation and an independent nation. As a free and independent nation. This Naga Plebiscite of Naga Plebiscite of 16 May 1951 was not an event that happened out of the whims and fancies of the Nagas, but is backed by legitimate historical facts since ancient times. Even during the British period, the Nagas had made their stand crystal clear in the 1929 memorandum to the Simon Commission. Following this, we declared our independence on the 14th of August 1947 to reaffirm and clear any doubts and aspersions of our declarations of independence. The Naga National Council conducted a national plebiscite on the 16th of May 1951 with observers from our neighboring country, India. This plebiscite decided our destiny to continue to live as a free and sovereign nation with the result 99.9. However, in spite of the plebiscite and the historic legitimacy of Nagaland, India chose to invade Nagaland and the Indo-Naga War ensued. Many Nagas have died in this defensive war against a mighty aggressor professing to be the world's largest democracy. To this day, it baffles one to think that India, the largest democracy, would do such a thing that is completely antithetical to the democracy she professes. These antithetical actions of India upon Nagaland belittles the very principle of democracy. It is the rape of the right of sovereign nations. India has legitimate right to claim Pakistan, Bangladesh, which were historically, racially, and culturally part of India, but does not do so, as they have legitimately become nations by their own right. However, to claim Nagaland, which never had any political, cultural, racial, or historical relations with India as part of India, is a shameful act and insult to logic and reasons. It is comparable to a narcissistic, delusional man claiming that all the islands of the ocean belongs to him, and then throwing a party in one of the islands by inviting his acquaintances despite the protest of the inhabitants of the island. This is what exactly happened as recent as a few weeks ago, with a chapter of the G20 summit being held at Kohima in Nagaland. India continues to illegally occupy our beloved country and toys and test our peaceable patience while making Nagaland her geopolitical playground. Today, if India in particular and the world in general cannot see the truth and take it for what it is, then the right of all sovereign nations are at peril from the likes of bullying larger nations like India. We cannot afford to shy away even if we have to face a narcissistic juggernaut with all its perplexities. In situations and circumstances like this, where we may have to stand alone for our sovereign nations that we hold dear, the plebiscite 1951 must be upheld even more strongly with an indomitable spirit of patriotism which we the Nagas do not lack. And the Naga Plebiscite of 1951 is not a mere expression of what the Nagas want. It is the sacrosanct covenant of what the Nagas were and are and will continue to be. And that is Nagaland, a sovereign nation. May God bless Nagaland. Ura Uvia.
His power and the wonders he has done. Parents, elderly people, leaders, and teachers, we have so much to tell our children about the faithfulness of God and about our Naga history. This is our responsibility in which we have been failing miserably. Our story is very much similar to that of the Israelites. God called Abraham aside to raise a nation through whom he showed his plans to restore the world from the bondage of sin. He called Moses and dictated him the 10 Commandments to him. In brief, the 10 Commandments tells us to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second part is to love our neighbor as ourselves. In these 2 commandments lie the solution to all our human problems. But the problem with us is we don't bother to study what God instructed us to do. That's why all the problems arise with ourselves, our families, our society, our church, in the political, social, economy, etc., etc. Today, everyone is fighting out of selfishness, greed, jealousy, hatred, etc. It took the Israelites 2,000 years to get their independence. It was because of their disobedience that it took so long for them. It was only in 1948 they got their independence. Coming to our people, God on his part has done everything for our restoration, and his final word on the cross was, "It is finished." The Naga family is badly divided today. We feel very sad. But let us not go on blaming each other. God knows no one is perfect. But the Bible principle that remains is that we reap what we sow. And the Lord is our judge. We are facing countless problems today, and in such a confused world, only the Word of God can lead us to the right path. Let us all take that with us today and go back and reflect on it. May God bless Nagaland. Kognalim.
Most of them are taken from this plebiscite, the speech of our legendary leader, Adino Phizo, NNC president. I wish more young people read this plebiscite speech of our leader, great leader. I should say this plebiscite day speech is the history of Naga independence in miniature. If our youngsters read this speech, I think you will be educated on Naga independence history, almost 90%. So I encourage our young people to read this speech time and again, not just once, but time and again. We all know that plebiscite, the name derived from a Latin word, especially the old generation our elders, fathers, grandfathers. Plebiscite is used synonymously, in some way or other, as an act of oath taking, customary oath taking. Our fathers may not know the exact meaning as to why a plebiscite was conducted, but the simple reason everybody knows was that they put their thumb impression. Plebiscite is synonymously known by them as thumb impression. But this thumb impression is one method of voting. So, in a simple way, what they understood was we put our thumb impression with our own blood. In many cases, the voters or those who participated used their own blood to put their thumb impression to vote. So that is part of the method. Plebiscite is interpreted or explained as a direct voting by the public or by the people. Indirect voting is something like we have election in the state as well as in the parliamentary elections, where we vote to elect our representatives who will speak for us in the parliament or assembly. But plebiscite is a direct voting by the people to decide on some important national subject or interest. And what was that, our national interest? Independence was our national issue of importance. So, in a way, plebiscite means decree of the common people through direct voting. Decree, law of the common people. The law established, enacted by the people themselves, by direct voting. Plebiscite has some differences with referendum. Both of these two terms are more or less synonymously used, but there are some basic differences. We decided to conduct plebiscite. I was just thinking how it even came to the mind of our great leader to conduct a plebiscite. I think it was beyond human comprehension at that time. There must be some divine guidance to our leaders, which gave him the wisdom to call for a plebiscite. A plebiscite is conducted voluntarily, voluntary participation. And it is not absolutely necessary for the government to implement the result of the plebiscite. Meaning, plebiscite did not have the sanction of the established government to conduct it. Whereas in referendum, government sanction is needed. Voting is no doubt voluntary, but it is a constitutional duty, and the government must implement it, the result. If it is in favor of the referendum. So these are basic differences between plebiscite and referendum. I think our leader called for plebiscite because he wanted a voluntary participation, no coercion, no force, nothing, but a voluntary participation by every Naga to decide their own future. The reasons or the objectives of the plebiscite 1951, he said it was to reaffirm our individual and village independence that existed through the ages before the British came to our land. To affirm that we were independent people. That was one reason. Another reason was to ratify our national independence, which was declared on August 1947. In the bedrock of Naga society, the writer Dr. S.C. Jamir said, Nagas never had kingdom sovereignty. But here we have come to know that we were independent people. Every village was an independent republic unit. No doubt there was no collective or compact sovereignty, but that independent village states, we decided to bring it under one sovereignty, and that was done by Independence Declaration on 14 August 1947. Then another reason why we wanted to conduct plebiscite was to show our unity, that Nagas, all our Nagas were united in the same page, that we were independent, we want to remain independent, or we want to stay as independent nation. That all Nagas were united on this issue. The plebiscite was conducted. The result, as we know, was 99.9% they say mandate for independence. So I should say that plebiscite result was the climax, the highest point of Naga unity. Another reason was to push our right of independence in writing and put it on record. Earlier, our leader said we failed to put our discussions on record in writing. We failed to do that, and because of that, so many problems came up later on. There were charges, counter charges, or say claims and counter claims. So in order to do away with all those things, our leader decided that we should put everything in writing from now on and put it on record. Then the most important, according to me, is the last reason to have plebiscite. It was not to decide whether to join the Union of India or not, but to let India and the world know the position of Nagaland as independent nation. It was not to decide whether or not to join the Union of India. We never joined. We decided not to join. So it was never to decide, but to reaffirm our own independence that existed and declared as such.
But India is a nation. So the Naga is also as much a nation as India is. Our sovereignty is as important as the sovereignty of India or any other nations. Therefore, let us not confuse ourselves with the word factions. We have shown our oneness, therefore, that cannot be undone. The Nagas have to understand that one.
May your purpose be fulfilled, Lord. Hallelujah. Listen to our prayer, Lord.